Pawn to e4. Pawn to c5. Knight to f3. Pawn to d6. Pawn to d4. Pawn to d4. Knight to d4. Knight to f6. Knight to c3. Knight to c6. Sicilian defense, classical variation. Bishop to c4. Black to play. What to move? If knight to e4, a blunder. Black to play. What to move? If pawn to e4, a blunder. If queen to c7. Pawn to e6 was played in the game, creating a wall against the c4 bishop. Bishop to e3. Pawn to a6. Bishop to b3. Knight to a5. Pawn to f4. Queen to c7. Pawn to g4. Pawn to d5. Black counters the attack on the wing by attacking the center. This is move 10 and we reach a brand new position. There are no games from here in the Uzchess Masters database. White to play. What to move? If pawn to e5. King to g1 with equality. Pawn to d5 was played in the game. Black to play. What to move? If knight to d5, a mistake. Bishop to b4 was played in the game. The best defense is the attack. Pawn to e6, a great move. White opens the positions and starts a fire on the board. Knight to b3, exchanging the knight of the rim with the dangerous Spanish bishop. Pawn to b3. Bishop to c3. Pawn to c3. Queen to c3. King to f2. Bishop to e6. Knight to e6. Pawn to e6. Rook to c1. Queen to b2. King to f3. Black to play. What to move? If queen to a2, a blunder. The a2 pawn is a bait to take black's queen out of the game. Black's king is still on the center and it can be quickly attacked. Rook to c7, white is winning. Rook to d8 was played in the game. Queen to c2. Queen to c2. Rook to c2. Black to play. What to move? If king to g8. Knight to d5 with equality. Knight to d5 was played in the game. Rook to e1. This is move 21 and white finishes their development. Black to play. What to move? If knight to e3, a blunder. To take is a mistake. It allows white to improve the position of their rooks. King to g8 was played in the game. Pawn to h4. Black to play. What to move? If pawn to h5. Rook to d7 with equality. Rook to c8 was played in the game. A slight inaccuracy. Black exchanges rooks and allows white to start a bishop versus knight battle. Rook to c8. Rook to c8. Bishop to d4. King to f7, centralizing the king. Rook to e5. Knight to e7. Rook to c5. Rook to c5. Bishop to c5. Knight to c6. The position is equal, but black has an isolated e6 pawn. White has to demonstrate that a bishop is superior to the knight by creating threats on both wings of the board. King to e4. Pawn to g6, a great move. Black plans to attack white's kingside pawns. Bishop to b6. Pawn to h5. Pawn to h5. Pawn to h5. Pawn to f5. Knight to e7. Pawn to e6. King to e6. Bishop to f2. Knight to d5. Bishop to e1. Pawn to b6. Bishop to d2. The bishop controls all the jumps of the knight. Black to play. What to move? If pawn to a5. Pawn to b5 was played in the game. A slight inaccuracy. It was better to place the pawns on dark squares to restrict the mobility of white's bishop. Black's idea is to keep their queenside pawns on light squares and defend the kingside with king and knight. Bishop to a5. Black to play. What to move? If pawn to b4, a great move. Knight to e7, a dubious move, was played in the game. Black's knight has to keep an eye on both wings, so it goes to the center. However, this move gives the important f4 square, from which white will invade the kingside. King to f4. Knight to c6. Bishop to c3. Black to play. What to move? If pawn to b4, a brilliant move. White's king is trapped in the h-file. After some acrobatics, Black's knight grabbed the dangerous h-pawn. But now all the queenside will be the bishop's meal. Surprisingly, white is 2 pawns up, with bishop versus knight, but it is still a draw. The black's knight is such a hero. First stopped the h-pawn, and now sacrifices to stop white's queen-side pawns. And black draws because the queening square is of the opposite color of the bishop. Pawn to a5, a blunder was played in the game. King to g5. Pawn to a4. Pawn to b4. Knight to e7. King to h5. White wins the h-pawn in the game. Knight to d5. Bishop to d2. King to f5. White to play. What to move? If king to h6. White to play. What to move? If pawn to h5, a blunder. If king to g6. King to f5, white is winning. Pawn to a3 was played in the game. Knight to b6. King to h6. Knight to c4. Bishop to c3. Knight to a3. Pawn to h5. Knight to b1. Bishop to a1. Knight to d2. King to g7. Knight to e4. Pawn to h6. Knight to g5. White to play. What to move? If pawn to h7, a blunder. And black draws the game. Bishop to b2, a great move, was played in the game, stopping the a-pawn. Now black is in zugzwang. Black to play. What to move? If king to e6. Knight to e6 was played in the game. King to g8. Knight to g5. Bishop to c1. Pawn to a3. Bishop to g5. Pawn to a2. Bishop to f6, a great move. King to f6. Pawn to h7. Queen to a1. Queen to h8.